Okay. I'm going to start our intros as we have a few more people still logging in, but we will get started to respect everybody's time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for our 5th Exemplify session. I am super excited about this session. This is going to be our first on financial wellness, which we haven't tackled the topic yet, and really excited about who we have joining us. For those who aren't familiar with our series or still new to joining us, this series is called Exemplify, and it's brought to you by SelectPath. My name's Melissa. I'm the COO here, and we are offering these sessions out to people, our clients, the employees of our clients, and everyone in the community, because we just want to give access to information from some local experts and get you guys the tools that you need for mental wellness, financial wellness, and physical wellness as well. So I'm excited to announce our speaker for today, Jacalyn, who is coming to us from solveyourdebts.com, and which is Jacalyn, I'm sure, will explain sort of where they fit in the financial world. Jacalyn is an accredited financial counselor and education coordinator. She's worked with solveyourdebts.com for over 18 years. She has been married for 15 years and has a beautiful daughter. And she is passionate about her work. She cherishes her family time, which is a really nice balance. She loves to escape into books and movies and enjoys holiday traditions and traveling in the summertime. So I am super excited to pass this over so that we can all learn from this 18 years of expertise on how we can make money go farther. No pressure on that, Jacalyn.
Thank you so very much, Melissa. I appreciate the warm welcome. It is certainly our pleasure to be presenting to this group today. And yes, many years here at solveyourdebts.com. It's actually been a wonderful career. Recently, my role has actually been promoted, transitioned to Director of Counseling. So in addition to being a financial counselor, I will certainly be moving forward into a director's role, and I'm excited about that as well. So we will get right into our topic today, which is certainly something that is relatable to everyone. It is our hope that we will all benefit from today's discussion, and we will be sure to save time for questions towards the end. We'll go through some topic points, and if anyone does have any questions, certainly please utilize the Q&A box and plug your questions in there. We'll save time at the end and go through those. I definitely encourage as much participation as possible. And so let's go ahead and dive right in. So our mission here is basically how we execute our mission is through supporting financially distressed families and individuals through confidential and private professional counseling, educating consumers through programs, services, community outreach. We also empower consumers with the knowledge and ability to maintain control over their finances. Truly, our mission is the guiding force of the essential services that we provide. We do believe that financial wellness is attainable for everyone, regardless of your income level. We want everyone to have the ability to achieve financial wellness. So here's a little more about who we are and what we do. We are an accredited not-for-profit member agency with Credit Counseling Canada. We will always have your best interest at heart. Our nonprofit status means that we aren't looking to make a buck off of people's financial challenges, and we offer services throughout Atlantic Canada. And we also partner with another accredited nonprofit member agency who offers services throughout Ontario and Western Canada, which is Credit Counselling Society. Free, professional, and confidential personalized credit counseling is what we offer, along with budget mentoring, debt solutions, and financial education programs. We both ourselves at solveyourdebts.com and Credit Counseling Society offer low-cost, impartial, and professional services that put your needs first. We believe this is an essential ingredient to helping you solve your debts as quickly and painlessly as possible. We know that debt certainly can be a stress, a large strain on people and their financial wellness. So we aim to provide solutions. And our personalized credit counseling, budget mentoring, and financial education programs are designed to help you conquer those debts and feel proud of how you did it. We also offer an annual scholarship program. I will say that our partner organization, Credit Counseling Society, does not have a scholarship program as of yet. Perhaps with your encouragement, maybe someday they will, but we are very proud of our scholarship program here. We've awarded over $200,000 to date so far, and every year we are looking forward to helping students reduce the burden of their student debt. So today's topic, budgeting and money management, how to create a spending plan and manage economic inflation. Creating a spending plan and saving towards future goals is the key to financial success. Budgeting is honestly the most important thing that we do every day, day in and day out. Budgeting is the most important thing we do. Budgeting does not mean having less. It means doing more with what you have. As costs continue to rise, it's inevitable that most Canadians are going to be affected by this. Now is the time to review your spending plan and get ahead of the game. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about the rising costs, because we certainly are all seeing a lot of this lately. Melissa and I were having a conversation about this just before people were joining in, and we are absolutely seeing rising costs everywhere. Canada's inflation rate in 2022 represents the highest the country has seen in 30 years. Housing in 2020 was up 26%, and then again in 2021, another 20% on top of that. We are seeing record high costs of housing. Gas was up 32%, food 7%, and I suspect that's actually rising even more. And then of course, now we're starting to see the prime rate go up. You know, the banks are raising the rates. They're actually raising the rates at pretty speedy increments, more than what is normally expected. And so we're going to see these rates climb this year and next year until they feel they've reached a balance with inflation. So you have to ask yourself, how does this inflation impact your budget? And where is the extra coming from? Everyone needs to make adjustments to their spending plan to account for rising costs and economic inflation. We don't want to just stick our heads in the sand and hope it's all going to work out. These are no doubt unprecedented times. With inflation rising rapidly, many Canadians are feeling the pinch financially, of course, right out of the wallet. It's never been more important to sort of review that budget plan. And if you don't have a budget plan, it really is imperative that you create one now. Having to spend more on essential costs of living like gas and food and housing means having less to spend on everything else. It's got to come from somewhere, right? Personally, I have been continuously shocked at how much prices have risen over the past 2 years. These truly are extraordinary times, and I think we can all agree on that. So I want to give some examples about gas, because we're certainly seeing a lot of this. So let's have a closer look at rising gas prices. And for today, in our chart example, we're going to look at gas prices in New Brunswick. But I know that everyone is feeling the pain clear across the country when it comes to rising gas prices. So in January in New Brunswick, we were at $1.43 per liter. And now we are at February was $1.54. March rose again, $1.71. In April, it rose again, $1.83. And of course, these are the pump prices for self-serve. And as for May, New Brunswick gas prices hit a record-breaking $2.02 per liter. Ouch, right? That certainly is painful. You know, we all are getting past COVID and starting to plan and want to travel. The weather's getting nicer, and you know, we really don't want to be stuck in our houses anymore. But this cost is going to impact our ability, you know, to travel. We want to factor this in. Everything is going to cost more when we go out and do those things that we've all been waiting to do over the past couple of years. So have you taken the time to calculate how much more in gas you're actually spending with the rising costs? I know myself, I'm seeing it at least $30 or more per week in my tank to fill up my gas tank. So if you're spending $30 extra a week to fill up your gas tank, then that's an extra $130 a month, which is an extra $1,560 a year. So $1,500 extra per year going into my gas tank. Where is that money coming from, right? That's what we need to look at. So how to get your financial house in order during this tumultuous time? Well, our recommendations, we do have a few and we'll go through them. And we'll also talk about what you're looking at here on the screen in front of you. But our recommendations are to review your current financial status. You want to take a look at everything. You need to kind of know where you're at before you can plan where you want to go. And start by considering your personal situation. Tracking your income and your expenses is a great way to get the specific numbers involved. Sometimes you don't know what you're spending, so you might need to track the groceries and the gas for a couple of months to realize how much you actually are spending on these things. Take the time to sit down and review your finances over the past 3 months. Did you spend more than you made? Or did your budget balance? You know, which way was it? If your budget did not balance, if you are spending more than you're earning, then you need to figure out where you're overspending and where to cut back, right? So when it comes to looking at the situation and getting ready to make a budget plan, you want to make a realistic plan. By having a realistic budget, you'll have a strong understanding of what money is coming in and going out. And to start budgeting better, you'll need to be honest with yourself first about your spending habits. We will talk about that as well a little bit more in depth, but we often, as a credit counselor, I see this all the time, but we often seriously underestimate what we are spending in many areas, especially in the personal cash and spending habit areas. But beyond setting up that plan, you know what? You're also going to want to monitor your plan. You're going to want to monitor your progress. A budget isn't something that gets created once and then never looked at again. You have to consider it like a living document, and it must be referred to regularly. It's important to realize that your financial plans will change depending on what life unfolds for you throughout the coming months. You'll need to be open to altering your budget as well as your financial strategy. Things are changing all the time, right? Your income will change from year to year. Your expenses will change. You know, people have been dealing with rent increases lately, and obviously a lot of inflation costs are changing. But not just that, you know what? Your priorities will change too, right? So as your priorities change, so will your budget. And so you want to be adjusting your budget as it needs to be adjusted forever moving forward. You're just always going to have a working living document with that. So this template that you're looking at in front of you is actually the template that we use here and is available on our website. Our budget plan breaks down everything you see before you, breaks down all of your expenses, and it creates quite a list of everything. Not all expenses are listed here because I couldn't fit them all on one screen, but it certainly gives you a good example of what we come across when it comes to budgeting. So to give you an idea of how this breaks down, how you would fill it in, what you're looking at is your net income first, and you always want to put down what income is coming into the household. The important part for your income is to work with income that is a safe, guaranteed income, or an average income that makes sense. You certainly want to make sure that it is your net income and not your gross income. What goes into the bank account is the only figure that matters, right? So when it comes to budgeting. And all sources of income. Don't leave out your Canada Child benefit, for example, that comes on the 20th, or if you get tips with your job or whatever, commission or things like that. You don't want to leave out important sources of income that should be part of your budget plan. And of course, you can certainly look at a personal budget plan or a household budget plan as well for everybody in your household. Now, in this budget plan, it breaks things down monthly, and then you'll also see that it shows 8 weeks. And we just like to encourage people to see it in both views. A monthly view will give you that month at a glance snapshot so that you can sort of see what's coming in, what's going out, and the end result. But then the 8 weeks that you see allow you to break it down per pay cycle. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next cycle, in the next slide, so you can actually visualize it with me. But breaking things down per pay cycle helps you plan what needs to come out of each paycheck. And that way it's very realistic. This is your pay for today, and this needs to go here, this needs to go here, this is what I need for bills, this is what I have left over to spend. And it's all sort of broken right down for you. Takes the guesswork out of it, makes sure that the bills gets paid before other spending occurs, and it helps you really keep track of everything. And with the net income, then we got to list all the expenses. So first off, primary expenses come first. We always need to make sure and account for your cost of housing, your utility bills, cell phones, groceries and gas money, insurances, bank fees, the real core typical bills that most of us have simply because they're part of life. You need to address those first. They're priority, your basic necessities. And so rent or mortgage, typically some of these are going to be fixed, the same every month. Your vehicle payment is usually the same every pay, or biweekly or monthly, however you have your pay set up or your payment set up. Your mortgage or rent is typically a set amount. Things like insurances typically are also set. Bank fees, usually what the monthly service charge might be, unless you have extra transactions or extra fees that occurred because of things that you did with your banking. Typically it's a set amount, but some of these things are fluctuating. Groceries. Many people don't actually know how much they spend in groceries, and that is a big one for a lot of people. Whenever I get to the grocery section in the budget when I'm with a client, they really do struggle with how to figure out how much they're actually spending. And I think the issue for many people is because we're at the grocery store so often. It would be one thing if you went to the grocery store once a month and you could sort of track that. But when you are at the grocery store several times a week, then it certainly gets a little trickier to track. So you really do have to think about your habits. Do you get that big order on paydays, after paydays, a couple times a month, and then just pick up a few things in between on the off weeks? Do you do a big Costco run, once a month where you get all kinds of stuff. And I don't know about you guys, but I can never walk out of Costco without a few $100s out of my pocket. So you have to account for that, right? So yes, you want to start thinking about really how often are you going to the grocery store and how much are they adding up to, and figuring out what you're actually spending in those areas. Not to be confused with takeout and restaurants, that's further down the list. This is really talking about your core food bills that you get at the grocery store, toiletries as well, things like that. And with gas, of course, we've talked about gas and the rising prices. So what you thought you might have been spending in gas, no longer the right figure. You need to sort of adjust accordingly. Don't forget the other things like parking. For somebody who doesn't have a vehicle, they might need to factor in bus passes or taxis. Whatever your transportation costs are, you want to include it all. And when it comes to power bills, the power bill itself, some people are on equalized billing, easy for budgeting, certainly something that we would recommend. It helps just make things easier to pay year round, as opposed to hitting those extremely high bills in the winter and really suffering with how to keep up. The equalization of a power bill certainly takes the stress off of that, off of those high winter bills. But you certainly can contact your power company to make those arrangements if you aren't set up that way. If you are, you can also equalize yourself. You can do it on your own. And when the weather starts to get good and the bill starts to lower, you start sending a set amount that's sort of a little bit high, that's higher than what the bill actually is. It'll start building you a credit throughout the, spring, summer, fall months. And then you'll have that credit built up for the winter, and it'll help ease things through. So you can always try and equalize yourself as well. Things that are annual, like property taxes, or some insurances, some people pay them annually. For things like that, you're definitely going to want to break it down monthly and set the money aside. We really want to avoid having bills pop up once a year that we just don't know how we're going to cover. We want to plan for those bills. I know many people will use their tax refunds to cover a property tax, for example, just because of the timing of it and how it works out. But is that guaranteed? Are you always going to get that tax refund? Sometimes what happens if you didn't get the refund you planned because of unexpected job loss or whatever the case may be? You're still going to need to pay those property taxes. So really building it into your budget is the safer bet, the best course of action. Moving on to periodic expenses. These are the kinds of things that really catch people up in a budget plan. This is something that's overlooked a lot by many people when they're putting together a budget or spending plan. It's things like Christmas and our kids' birthdays, or a medical expense that was unexpected, car repairs, getting tires, a home repair. It is things like that most of us are whipping out a credit card for, because we didn't plan for them. They were considered unexpected and sort of popped up randomly, and we don't necessarily have the money for them. So we whip out the credit card and move on. Well, we would like to encourage people to actually plan for those expenses, treat them like a regular monthly bill. Because if you continually rely on credit for those things, then your debt's just going to continually rise. And of course, you're going to have to fit that into the budget as well. So one way or another, you're spending the money, so it should be part of your budget. And it's just better to be proactive with it than reactive. So the best approach, because you're never going to know exactly how much you're going to need for home repairs in the next year, but you can certainly estimate, right? Is there anything major that you need to conquer? Do you pay for snow plowing or lawn care maintenance, or a leaky tap that you're going to need to get addressed, or you're going to put in a new floor, or you need to replace a window? You can sort of have an idea of some of the things that you might need to address in the near future, whether it be in the next year, in the next 2 or 3 years. And then how much is it going to cost? Divide by 12, break it down monthly, and then put that figure into your monthly budget plan. Now, I encourage for these types of periodic expenses that you set the money aside, either in a separate savings account that you're not touching, or an envelope system at home with labels on them. A few envelopes, one for gifts, one for car repairs, all of those kinds of things. You certainly can stash the money aside. The next time you need an oil change, the money is sitting there waiting for you. I can attest that it does actually work and can run pretty smoothly if you give it a shot. So that's something that you certainly can try for those periodic expenses. We really want to avoid getting to Christmas and having to throw, a large amount on credit and then spend the first quarter of our year trying to pay it back, right? We really want to try to avoid that cycle if we can. And then, of course, there's those discretionary spending items. Yes, these are always the little things that add up to a lot. All right, the little things that turn big, basically, is what these are. And in our next slide, we'll talk about some examples of that as well. But your personal cash, coffee lunches, tea, breakfast bagel, your takeout restaurants. These days, a lot of Skip the Dishes or DoorDash or, whatever the delivery places are now, are extremely popular since COVID. And of course, there's entertainment, hobbies and clubs, things like that, cigarettes, alcohol, vaping, cannabis, all of those sort of personal habits. They need to be part of your budget too. Bottom line is, if you're spending money on it, it should be included, right? And it all acts as the big picture. If you are leaving things out as to what you're actually spending, that you are not really seeing a true budget plan or a true picture of your cash flow. And in order to truly see your cash flow and to assess it, you have to really have everything included so that you know whether you are spending more than you're earning. Is there a surplus, meaning you have extra left over to work with, or is there a shortfall, meaning you're spending more than you actually have coming in? You need to know that. So in order to know that, it all needs to be included. You're only hurting yourself, I assure you, if you leave things out. Be realistic, be honest. There's no judgment. In addition to discretionary expenses, of course, there would be savings to consider as well. I would like to think that many of us are considering savings, not only for future goals, but also for retirement or children's education or whatever might be applicable to our situation, our family. But I would like to think that, yes, savings is on the mind of many whenever possible. And we'll certainly talk about savings as well throughout the presentation too. And then, of course, debts is last. Last but not least are your debt payment obligations. Credit cards, line of credits, loans, personal loans, consolidation loans, buy now, pay later plans. There's just all kinds of different credit options out there these days, but whatever you have on the go, your payment obligations need to be incorporated into your budget plan as well. You want to make sure that you are not missing your bills, falling behind. We want to keep up to date and on track. And actually, this budget plan can help with that. When you break things down per pay cycle, you pay attention to your due dates, and then you allocate the money accordingly. So if you have something due at the first of the month, well, you're going to break it down so that by the time that first of the month rolls around, you have all the money you need to make that payment. So that's where the breakdown can really help you plan for those bill payments. So let's put it in action and see what it actually looks like. And with the budget template for this particular example, we're going to have a closer look, but this is a dual income couple and with one child. Their estimated gross incomes, one earns about 70,000 gross, one earns about 50,000 gross. And they are currently renting. So we're going to just sort of use that as a template here and take a closer look at what some expenses are that they're going to come across. So we have full-time income for both parents. We also have the Canada Child Benefit that comes in on the 20th. And then you'll see that we've put them in the monthly column, but we've also broken it down. Both of these couples actually get paid bi-weekly, and it just so happens they get paid on the same week. And that just makes it easier visually for you guys to see the breakdown. But yes, so I've broken their pays down bi-weekly. So when a payday comes in, a person could literally go down the list and allocate the money accordingly. And so let's go down that list. You have your rent, $2,100. So we've broken it down, $1,050 per pay. Again, you would want to pay attention to if rent is due the first of each month, you want to make sure that you have the full amount when it's actually due to put yourself on the right cycle. Your vehicle payment, $680 a month. We've broken that down, $340 bi-weekly, and that way it's automatic. A lot of vehicle payments are typically set up bi-weekly these days, so it comes right out of your account before any other spending. The power bill, we've averaged about $180 for this couple with their rent, and broken it down $90 bi-weekly. Cell phone, we've basically indicated, or in our minds, that one person is paying for a cell phone, the other person has a company phone that they don't have to pay. So this would be one person's cell phone, $100 a month, and broken down $50 bi-weekly, as you can see in week 2, 4, 6, and 8 bi-weekly payment. Then we have groceries and toiletries. We've estimated $750. For a family of 3, $750 is doable. But I certainly have come across, families of less people who spend more than that. I've certainly come across people with larger families who spend less than that. Groceries is definitely personal in a way per family. We also, everyone has different dietary needs, right? Everyone has different requirements for the food that they buy, the kinds of foods that they buy. But when it comes to budgeting, it's one of those areas where there is some flexibility. So, if you got to the end of your budget and you had a shortfall and you needed to sort of find some areas to cut back on, well, you could always make some changes in your grocery purchases, maybe some no-name brands instead of brand names, going with a shopping list so that you're not just randomly throwing things in the cart. You're only going to get what you need. Don't go hungry. It's a true thing. You don't want to shop for food when you're hungry. You're going to spend more. If you can, leave the kids and the spouse at home. The more people that go, the more things get whipped into the cart. So, there's always tips and tricks of how to scale back if you absolutely needed to. Those phone, internet, cable bundles as well, I skipped over, I didn't mean to, but your Bell, your Rogers, your phone, internet, cable bundles, they of course also are rising in cost like everything else, and certainly can be a good chunk, but always something that you can look into and potentially adjust if you need to. A lot of people these days I'm seeing are going with just internet and some streaming services as well to go along with it. A lot of people are skipping the whole phone, internet, cable bundle, which used to be quite the norm for everybody. But there are options, which is good. Limited options, I might say, but still, there are some changes that a person could make if they had to. Gas, bus pass, taxis, parking. We're saying for this couple, $500 a month is what they need for transportation to and from work, and of course, whatever they need to do with driving their child around. $250 bi-weekly is how it's broken down. Then we have daycare. If you have a child and in this case, it's a young child in daycare, $800 a month, good chunk of change. Definitely important to make sure that's in the budget. And of course, the tenant and auto insurance we've put in there as well, $170 a month, $85 bi-weekly. And then bank fees. A standard bank fee that I'm seeing these days is about $17 a month just for the standard service charges. Of course, you can always run into additional charges with extra transactions that are beyond your plan, or if you're going into overdraft regularly, there's always extra fees and charges with that, including the interest charges. So if you want to reduce your bank fees, then you want to avoid those extra things. Some periodic expenses that this particular mock couple are running into is there, of course, auto repairs and maintenance. If you have a car, you're going to have repairs and maintenance, so you want to build it in. We're going to say just shy of $1,000 a year is what they're looking at for auto repairs and maintenance. So we've built that into $80 a month. Prescriptions, eyeglasses, and dental. You might have coverage, great. But there's usually co-pays on everything, whether it be glasses every couple of years or, a cleaning at the dentist. You might have 80% coverage and pay 20%. So you want to build that in. Clothing, of course, a lot of us don't really think about it, but maybe you're a regular shopper. Maybe you're out at the mall every weekend, or maybe you're more seasonal, only when you need something. You want to think of your shopping habits. Back to school time for the kids, things like that, footwear, work clothes. You definitely want to include all of that for the family. Gifts is also something that people seriously underestimate. I myself actually have a separate budget for gifts itself, because I needed to know how much I was actually going to be spending in gifts for the year, because I always found I was always spending more than I was budgeting. So I actually jotted down all the holidays that I buy for, all the people that I would buy for, and I set an approximate amount that I would feel comfortable spending. And then I added it all up, and the figure was actually quite shocking. So then I readjusted backwards and actually scaled back a little bit. Not that I don't love these people, but you've got to set limits. But yes, I needed to do that so I could see how much I was actually spending, and then I could work the figure into my budget. And haircuts, salon visits, if you're getting your nails done every 6 weeks, or, a haircut, whatever you're getting done, put it in there, no matter how little, no matter how large. Gym, sports or gym membership, we did put in a little bit for that. Subscriptions, those would be your streaming services, your Netflix, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, newspapers, magazines, CAA, alarm systems, all of those things that people have. You want to include it. And those are the kinds of things that we tend to forget about, because we might attach them to a credit card and it's just automatic that it gets charged and we don't really think about it, right? So we want to include them, of course. Discretionary expenses for this couple, we put in some personal cash so that, they can go to get their coffee in the morning on the way to work, or maybe some hot lunches at school for the child. Well, actually the child's in daycare, but just some personal cash, a breakfast bagel occasionally, whatever they might need that way. Takeout, restaurants, big thing for a lot of people. I'm seeing people's takeout and takeout restaurant bill to be equal to their grocery bill, honestly, lately, because, everyone has been so deep into COVID, not wanting to touch anything, not wanting to be near people, using the door delivery services, and it all adds up, all extra expenses. It's all part of the inflation. And entertainment, hobbies, clubs. So, if you're going to a movies regularly, or if you're you like to go to clubs, or what are the kids involved in activity wise, dance, swimming, gymnastics, things like that, hockey. Yes, do you online gaming? Are you into crafting? Do you buy a lot of books? Whatever it is, put it in. Cigarettes, vaping, alcohol, and cannabis, no judgments here, folks. Everyone has their vices, okay? So you put it in the budget, and the goal really ultimately is that whatever you put into the budget, if it fits, great. If it doesn't fit, then you get to start making adjustments, but you get to decide where those adjustments happen. You're in control. That's the beautiful part about a budget, is you're in control. Beyond the discretionary expenses, we have our savings emergency fund and our TFSA, RRSP money going in back and forth. And then for this couple, they also have a credit card and a line of credit. And so we put that debt payment in there as well. But the thing that we want to mention about the debts, and now would be the time to kind of throw that in there, is that a lot of people in a budget would put their minimum debt payment down, because that's all that's required. And, as long as you make your minimum debt payment, then you're good. But we would encourage not to do that. We would encourage to pay more than the minimum. When it comes to debts, your goal should always be to pay it down as quickly as possible, right? I mean, let's face it, we've certainly learned over the last couple of years that life is unpredictable. And you really just don't want to be carrying debt any longer than you have to, because you never know when your priorities need to shift to something else or some other unexpected something comes along. So you want to be paying more than the minimum payments. And there's plenty of online calculators out there. If you Googled online, payment calculator for credit cards or line of credits or loans, lots of options will come up. You can certainly put in, I want it to be paid off in 2 years, and put in your interest rate and your balance, and it'll tell you what your payment needs to be. So that's what you would want to incorporate into your budget, is whatever payment is affordable that will get that debt paid in the time frame that you want. Don't get caught in the trap of making minimum payments only, because I can assure you that making minimum payments only means that you're going to be paying for many, 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 many years to come, and you're going to be paying a huge bucket load of interest. Unfortunately, today's world, and it didn't used to be like this, but credit cards, line of credits, your minimum payment is mostly covering just interest. So if that's all you're ever paying, then in some cases, especially with line of credits, your debt is never going to get paid. It literally will be with you until the end of time. And we don't want that. So just to give you an example, let's say you had a $10,000 credit card debt. An average interest rate for credit card debts is 19.99%. And I'm going to say that your minimum payment is 3%. And typically today it's less than 3%. It's more like 1 and 2%. But for today's purpose, I'm going to say 3%. It used to be 3% many years ago. So if you have that $10,000 credit card and you only ever pay the minimum payment, then it will take you 25 years to pay off that $10,000. And you will have paid over $12,000 in interest. But let's say instead of paying the minimum payment, you paid $400 a month, because that's what you felt you could afford. It fit into the budget and you wanted to get rid of the debt as quickly as possible. So you started paying $400 a month. Well, by doing it that way, you will have paid off the debt in 2.75 years, so just under 3 years, and you will have paid just a hair over $3,000 worth of interest. So there's a huge difference in how long that debt is with you, how long you're having to pay for it, and how much interest you're putting into somebody else's pocket and not yours by just making minimum payments only, by paying extra instead. So that's what we would encourage. But hopefully this template gives you an idea of how you can break down your bills. You'll also notice that I allocated some things to the biweekly payment, but then I also have allocated some things to the Canada Child Benefit, so that it's all accounted for, and we know where the money needs to go. And we're just going to touch on, because we're almost done here, so I'm just going to touch on financial goals and savings as well. And I always like to say, a dream is something that you wish for, and a goal is something that you plan for. And that really is the difference for me. You've got to write it down. You want to make it a SMART goal. You want it to be specific. You want it to be something you can measure. You want it to be achievable, attainable, of course. We don't want to have unrealistic goals. And it needs to be relevant to you as well. Obviously, it needs to be something that you actually want. And the time frame needs to be realistic. You want to be sure that you can actually obtain this goal in a reasonable time frame, that you don't want to give up, right? So how you would do that, I would say that you should prioritize the goals. Something that's most important to you and your family should certainly come first, or a necessity should come first. And if you have a goal of, oh, I really want a vacation, or, oh, I need to save up to replace the muffler in my car, well then obviously the vacation might need to wait, and the priority might need to be repair the car. You want to visualize your goals. If you want to be saving for that vacation, and yet something else comes up here and there and everywhere, that that money that you're supposed to put aside for the vacation, oh well, the girlfriends wanted to go for dinner, so I'm going to spend a little here and whatever. But if you visualize yourself on the beach with your cocktail and your feet in the sand, and help you remind you of your goal, that certainly will keep you motivated. Put a picture on the fridge, something that you'll see regularly. Get excited about it. Expect bumps in the road. Financial goals are not perfect. Like anything else in this world, expect bumps in the road. But just keep going though, right? Don't stop, just keep going. So don't want to give up, and of course celebrate your progress. Yes. When you actually achieve your goal, or you know, get halfway to your goal, celebrate the progress. You're doing great. You want it to be something that you get excited about. And we want to put out a challenge as well to everyone. That really would be ideal for us, is to put out that challenge to everyone, to talk about money with your spouse and children. Share your spending plan so that everyone in the household can understand. You really do all want to be on the same page, right? If you're trying to stick to a budget plan, but you don't share it with your spouse or make sure that everybody's on the same page, and they're just out there tap, 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 swipe, 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 and you know, you're not really talking about it, then it's really going to be impossible to stick to that budget plan. So definitely include everybody in the process and work together towards those financial goals. And I mean, let's be realistic. Gone are the days when your 18-year-old would be ready to start their career, buy a home, start a family, and begin their own adult lives. It just doesn't seem to happen that way anymore. Today, most students are returning to the parental home after post-secondary with debt. And according to CNN, as of July 2020, 52% of young people aged 18 to 29 years old were living with their parents. Most parents of these young people typically want to give their children everything that they didn't have. As a parent, I can understand that. You want to give them everything you didn't have. And this can mean supporting them and their debt, unfortunately, right? Well into adulthood. So it's, you know, you want to help your children, but you also don't want to stall them in their path of independence and of course, getting rid of debt as well. It is important that young adults learn how to be financially responsible. You know, we need to teach the value of hard work and teach them how to budget. This is a lifelong skill that unfortunately is not taught in schools. And so you really do need to be the one to give this skill to your child, to teach this skill to your child. And we also have a financial goals document on our website as well. That certainly is available to everyone. It helps you think about, you know, what are your financial goals, or to basically chart them out. What is the cost of your goal? How much can I afford to set aside each month? How long will it take me? Sort of help you break things down. You know, if you want to build an emergency fund, let's say, and we always hear emergency funds should be typically 3 to 6 months worth of salary to cover all of your, or 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Is what you would love to have an emergency fund. That's such a high number for many people that it often seems impossible. So one thing I always encourage with savings is start small and build. You know, you don't want to set an amount that is so unrealistic, that doesn't fit into your budget, that you're going to sort of give up on before you actually accomplish anything. So you want to make it be realistic and affordable for your budget, and build on it. And we'll go from there. You'll see your progress over time. So that does bring us to the end of our presentation, and I do apologize, but I think I went a few minutes over into our Q&A time, but I am open to any questions at all. And of course, what you're seeing on the screen as well is our contact information for both solveyourdebts.com, who covers the regions of Atlantic Canada and Quebec. So PEI, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, as well as Quebec can certainly reach out to solveyourdebts.com. And anyone in Ontario can certainly reach out to Credit Counseling Society at nomordebts.org. And as a final notation as well, we will issue out a survey. I would imagine I'll send the link to Melissa, and she will likely get that out to the attendees today to be able to fill in the survey for today's session. So how are we doing, Melissa? Any questions for me?
Nothing has come out yet, but that will give people a sec. So thank you, Jacalyn, first off. Really appreciate all of that knowledge. And you know what, I think that there's a lot of power sometimes in just sort of going back to the beginning and setting out a plan and starting fresh, which is awesome. I'm really, really grateful for you bringing that to everybody. For those of you online, I know it's a bit of a it's sometimes a tough topic to ask questions about in a group forum. So we will definitely get all of this information out to you, but we would love to open up the floor to anybody who has any questions for Jacalyn as well.
Yes, absolutely. Don't be shy by any means.
You can throw them in the chat or in, and if you send them right to the hosts and panelists, we won't even say your name.
So a budget template, I can see the question, so I'm going to go ahead and look at that. That's okay. I might have got here before you did. I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Where is a good place to get a budget template? Well, our 8-week planner that I used in this example is actually on our website under resources, so that can be there. I also know that Financial Consumers Agency of Canada also is a great resource website for lots of financial documents and information. I also know that Credit Counseling Society would also have documents available or templates or just lots of information about budgeting on their website as well. So I would definitely encourage you to visit our site, Credit Counseling Society site, or Credit Counseling Society site, or Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Those are great.
We can include that in our follow-up email when we send it out, right, Jacalyn? Like, we'll
yes, I'm going to provide
template.
A copy of a financial goals template, and it has the budget right on the back. So
awesome.
I'll provide a copy of that, and that way you can forward it right along with the presentation slide if they want to see that as well.
Awesome. Is that a fillable budget? Somebody's asking.
Well, what I can actually provide 2 copies. I'll provide a PDF file that is sort of just a double-sided, and then I'll also provide an Excel file that's just this template itself, because it is a working document. You can fill in your data, the formulas are sort of built in, it'll tally it up for you, and that's what I use every day with my own clients. So it's easy. So I'll provide both copies.
Awesome.
For myself on that.
Thank you. And we do have another question.
Yes.
As well. So the question is, if I have a loan and debt as well, is it better to pay it all at the same time or pay it in a payment? Especially, specifically, I lost my job during COVID, and now I have a new job. What's your advice? Also, do you think if I want to buy a car, is it better to pay essentially cash? I'm assuming 5,000 cash, or pay it in a monthly payment?
Well, thank you for your question, because it's certainly very relevant to, I'm sure, a lot of people. You know, a lot of people had job changes over the last couple of years, no question. And when it comes to debts, if you have multiple debts, the most cost-effective way to attack your debt would be to focus on paying the highest interest debt first, and while making minimum regular payments on everything else. Once that highest interest debt is paid, then you snowball what you were sending to them, roll it down to the next highest paid or highest interest product, and continue on until all the debts are paid. Now, that is what's going to be the most cost-effective method to eliminating your debt. However, some people need the motivation of eliminating a debt. So if you have a smaller debt, like something that is more quickly attainable, you might want to attack that one first, because maybe you need the motivation, right? So it can be a personal choice that way. When it comes to the car, if you have, I'm assuming the question might be about like the $5,000. I'm not sure that it meant cash. I'm wondering whether they mean to put that on credit or not. Like, if you have cash to pay for a vehicle and you don't have to make monthly payments, then, you know, that seems like the better way to go, because you won't have interest involved, right? So
yeah, they said it would be cash.
Right. Okay. So then, you know, you really just want to avoid paying somebody else money that you don't need to, right? So if you don't have to pay interest on something, then by all means avoid that if you can, right? Now, mind you, it depends on what you've got on the go. If that $5,000 that you're spending to buy a car was needed for something else, then maybe you do need to do the car payment. But of course, be realistic as to what's in your budget plan, and of course, shop around for what's a reasonable interest rate as well. So it depends on your situation, to be honest, as to what your what route you'll take, but you never want to pay anybody interest unnecessarily. So anything else coming up, or maybe I don't know if I got everything in that question. I'm just
You talked about what to pay first. Talked about the car. So yeah, I think we got everything in that question.
All right. Yes, there's certainly a lot to consider with a job or with a vehicle purchase. You know, when it comes to, do I lease? Do I buy? And do I go new? Do I go old? There's a lot to consider when it comes to a vehicle purchase, for sure. Saving up for a down payment is always a great way to start. If you know you're going to need a vehicle transition in the near future, then saving up for that down payment, because a lot of us don't have the money to go out and, you know, buy something in cash, a new vehicle in cash. So try to save up as much as you can, and it'll lower your costs for payment and how long you have to carry that. One thing I will say about vehicles that I do recommend is that I don't encourage stretching payments over 7-8 years. We are not a fan of that here at solveyourdebts.com, because vehicles are just not that reliable these days. And, you know, are you still going to be paying for that long after it's still usable to you? And of course, you're paying so much more in interest when you stretch it out over that length of time. So if you can keep your vehicle loans to, you know, around 5 years, that is ideal. That is ideal. It's more realistic that you still have a vehicle of value once you're done paying it. So you have options.
Awesome. Great feedback. What is your advice for newcomers related to budget and spending money? I'm going to assume by newcomers, we're potentially, this person is asking because they're new to Canada. That would be my assumption.
We work with and talk a lot about newcomers, and you know, with newcomers, and for the newcomer, I absolutely recommend possibly reaching out personally just to any one of our services that's available to you, is because as a newcomer, depending on where you're coming from, the Canadian banking system entirely could be completely foreign concept. And it's important to really understand the difference between using a debit card and your own money and using a credit card, which is not your own money. And a lot of banks offer a newcomers package when you come in. You know, if you go to a bank and you tell them you're a newcomer, they might get you set up with a bank account. They might offer you a car loan. They might offer you a credit card. And you really need to understand everything that you're signing into and what the obligations are. And if language is a barrier, you know, you need to make sure that you're fully understanding what you're getting into. But the budget template that we gave as today's example is still universal for everyone, right? To go through your expenses, income, and understand what's coming in and what's going out. That is for everyone, whether you're a newcomer or not. So you can certainly still use the same templates.
Awesome. And we're pretty much at the end, but we have one more question on here that I don't want to miss. So is there a web seminar, a webinar of some sort, I'm assuming, to present to a family starting a budget? They have 2 free spending kids. I understand. I do as well.
I do know that our partner, Credit Counseling Society at nomoredebts.org, I wanted to make sure I got that right. They have an abundance of budgeting resources and webinars that people can utilize on their site that is helpful to everyone. So there might just be something along those lines right on their site. It is a very specific type of webinar that you're asking about, so I can't say for sure exactly if you'll find exactly what you're looking for, but I know that most of our organizations are always gearing towards including youth in the process and making sure that they are also learning about managing their money and what's important. Actually, here with us, we do a grade 4 read program during Financial Literacy Month, and we go into grade 4 classrooms and read a book revolving around money and do an activity and talk about savings and managing money and things like that. So it's never too early to start learning that. So I really hope you find what you're looking for on the nomoredebts.org website, because they have a lot of resources.
And I will say, if you don't find what you're looking for on the nomordebts.org resource, and your company, your employer offers an EAP program, a lot of the EAP programs have budgeting supports for kids as well, and teaching your kids about money and that side of things. So definitely,
the government would have it too.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff on the government website. So unlike the Canada.ca website.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. They both have them. Absolutely. So there's certainly lots to find.
Yeah, for sure. So I am going to be cautious of time because it is past our time. And so, Jacalyn, first off, thank you for all of your information. For those of you on the webinar still, just so you know, we will be sending it all out to everybody. So you'll get the recording, you'll get access to the tools and the documents. It'll all come out via email over the next couple of days. So if you do have more questions or more resources, definitely reach out to either solveyourdebts.com or nomordebts.org, depending on where you're located. And as far as Exemplify is concerned, our June session is on the 3rd Tuesday of June, and we will be talking about essentially overall wellness. It's being presented by Inkblot, and they will be talking about sleep hygiene and stress management. And it's a really nice segue. If you're really stressed out about your money, then come to the next one. Because it's going to help us with how do we sleep, what are some of those things we do just to manage our stress levels and keep ourselves in the best overall wellness. Don't think fitness, think sort of sleep hygiene and general wellness, because that's what they'll be talking to us about. So that's going to come up in June.
It sounds lovely, actually.
You can come too, Jacalyn. It'll be fun. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you everybody for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
That's great. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.